So we decided to kind of think, well, what we need is some kind of roving caregiving team. People with Huntington's disease were, their caregivers were burnt out, or their caregivers had left the country because of the geopolitical situation.
We have this phrase that we use in Seating Matters, giving caregivers the means to care, and like that's what you're doing in Venezuela. Like you are employing people, you're giving them a purpose, and in return they are helping other people. Like it's just amazing. I think it's absolutely wonderful. Alex, would love to welcome you now to the Martina Tierney podcast. I'm delighted for you to come here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So you came over from Liverpool yesterday?
I did.
Nice short flight.
Yeah, and we flew over the Isle of Man, and that's where my dad's from, and I could see all the details.
Very good.
So I was super happy.
And it's your first time across the water?
Uh-huh.
I don't know why more people don't come here, because it's such a short flight and we're such nice people.
Well, I'll be back.
So just for the benefit of those listening and watching, tell us how you came to be at Seating Matters today. How did that connection come about? Because yesterday was the first time I met you in person. Mm-hmm. So how did you find out about Seating Matters?
Oh, now Seating Matters, I've known about you for a very, very long time.
All right.
I'm an occupational therapist, and I work in a service in the West Midlands, a neuropsychiatry service, which just happens to have occupational therapies taking a major lead in some of the service delivery. And part of my role is to recommend or support other occupational therapists in finding appropriate seating for particularly patients with Huntington's disease, because that's my speciality.
Yeah.
But coming here, so I'm quite profoundly dyslexic. So I struggle with a lot of processing of words. And everything. I saw a documentary recently that said ideas and words are like slippery fish.
Yes.
They escape me. So I find quite a lot of the social media is production of words. So I find it quite exhausting to keep up with. But somebody said to me, you really ought to go onto LinkedIn. It's a great place to connect with people. And one of the first things I came across was your podcast.
Okay.
And
Good.
it was one of the first ones where you interviewed an OT that had treated you.
Oh, yes.
And
my hand therapist.
Yeah. And there was something within it, and I can't remember what it was, but I commented on it, and you came back to me. And you've got a bit of a rep in the OT world that it's like, oh, Martina Tierney. Okay. So, and I was like, this is really cool. She's replied to me. And you said something along the lines of, if you know anyone that has an interesting story to tell about the power of OT, perhaps you could let me know. And I've been working on a charity project, and I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to big that up because I think that's a story. And so I then forwarded you the link, and you said, hey, let's talk.
Yeah.
And here I am.
And here you are, and it is a fascinating story, and I can't wait to get into it. But before I do get into that, I want to hear a little bit about how you became an OT, your pathway to OT, because it's quite unusual, and that's what I've found with interviewing many OTs. Like me, I 18, done my A-levels, done 3 years of university, became an OT. But I realised then not everybody has the same pathway, and yours is very interesting. So tell us a little bit, if you can, how you became an OT.
Well, I suppose if I get back to the whole dyslexia thing, when I was at school, I didn't come out with any qualifications. I think my parents were like, oh my goodness. And yet I was in the classes and I really loved learning. But I think back when I was at school, dyslexia wasn't such a thing. It wasn't so well screened for. No. And so I was streamed into other classes, and it was like, well, she's not going to do so well. So, okay, you'll leave school, you'll just get a job. Yeah. And so I came out of school, and I just kind of fell into jobs that I could get. So that was caregiving or bar work or admin work. And fast forward a little bit, and I was working 3 jobs to pay my rent. And I was working in a nursing home, and a female, came in, and they were treating one of the people that I was caring for, and it was to do with positioning. And this lady had awful pressure sores. And I said, "Hey, who are you?" And she said, "Oh, I'm so-and-so, and I'm an occupational therapist." And I was like, "What is that?" And she told me, and I was just like, gosh, I didn't even know that kind of job existed. No. I knew about physiotherapists, but I never heard about occupational therapists. And I really liked the whole mix of things, because I think I'm a people person, and I'm a creative person, and I'm interested in other things about what makes people tick. And so I stored it away in the back of my brain for years and years and years. And I got into my early 30s, and I was married by that time. And I had some really dull job, and a dull admin job. And I woke up one morning and I said to my husband, "I hate my job." And he said, "Go and do something about it then. Don't whinge, go and do something about it." So I thought, well, look, I've got no qualifications. I can't get back into university. So I went to the local college and I took an access course, which is like the equivalent of trying to get your A-levels in a year. Really, really hard work.
Especially with you having the dyslexia.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't actually had the diagnosis at that point.
You didn't know what the problem was?
No, I didn't. Okay. But I'd sort of suspected. I'd heard people talking about it. So I got into university with the amount of points that you get. And my husband then got posted because he was in the Navy. So we put it on hold for another couple of years. But when he got back from his posting, I got into university, and I thought, I really am going to have to do a lot of reading and writing. I've got to kind of find out what's going on. So I did. I went to the Learning Differences Centre. I spoke to them about the difficulties that I had. And they said, "Have you ever thought that you might be dyslexic? Let's get an educational psychologist to see you." I was really lucky back then because the universities used to pay for that. I don't think they do now. And they said to me, "Gosh, you're profoundly dyslexic. How on earth did you ever get through anything?" And I was like, with difficulty. And so I struggled through university, but I came out, and I think it was my practical side, but I ended up with my first class honours degree from Southampton. And I then got a job at my local hospital in Cheshire, which is very near to where my parents live. And so that's the beginning of the story.
There's a saying that I've often read, and it says, when the dream is big enough, the facts don't count. So, like, you obviously had this drive or ambition to become an OT, and like anybody else with that severe dyslexia would have given up or would have thought, I can't do it. But like, you obviously had a burning desire. You maybe weren't aware of it at the time, but I think you must have had when you went through that to become an OT.
I think it was, you hear things like, "Oh, well, she's not going to do very well," or "she's a bit thick." And you get a bit of a chip on your shoulder, and then it makes you more, for me, it certainly made me more determined to show people.
So it doesn't work like that for everyone, though. Some people that really, I know someone who wasn't diagnosed and it just had a profound impact negatively. And they're not a stupid person, but they were too late in anybody recognising what the issue was.
Yeah, and that's a great
shame. So fair play. So before we get into your charity work, just to say, you had such a flavour of, you went to work in Germany?
Oh, yes. Well, I worked in the NHS, and I would get frustrated by some of the systems. And so sometimes I would step outside of the NHS. And I actually went to work for the army in Germany, near Bergen-Belsen. And I worked there for 6 months, but they'd never had an OT in a community mental health team within the army. So I was working.
These were serving soldiers.
These were serving soldiers who were, if you like, out in Germany. They used to have the sort of big open areas where they used to, if you like, produce war games to simulate what the soldiers might experience in the battlefield. And so they were young soldiers, and obviously they would come, and they were of the age where they might develop psychosis or other quite serious mental illnesses. And so the team was there to try and risk assess, but also to support them as best they could. But it wasn't just them, it was their family members as well.
Like a proactive as opposed to a reactive, like it was people who were going through training.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yeah. And so it was sort of almost a bit of an experiment having an OT in the team, especially a civilian, because whilst they have physiotherapists in the army, they didn't have occupational therapists in the army.
Do they now?
No, I believe America does, but I don't think the UK does, although they play a prominent role in defence rehabilitation now, which is great. Right. Okay. But I was there for 6 months, and they offered me the job, but my husband said, I don't want to move to Germany, thank you very much. So I came back, and I came back into what was called an assertive outreach team, which is for people with psychiatric disorder that don't engage in traditional ways of delivery of service. So,
and they don't engage because
of their illness, or because they have a dual diagnosis, they have drug or alcohol problems, unstable socioeconomic environments. So it required a certain approach to engage them in a very non-traditional way. And that's when I first met a patient with Huntington's disease. And because of the range of symptoms associated, not just physical, with the condition, that meant that they would find it really, really difficult to engage in traditional clinic systems, for example.
So that's how you got introduced to Huntington's disease, would you say, at the early stage? So having a conversation with you yesterday, even I, as an OT of all these years, always think of Huntington's mainly as a movement disorder. You know, think of the chorea, think of the constant movement. But there's a lot more to Huntington's than that. So, and I was fascinated. So tell me about the cognitive social, what did you call it?
Social cognition.
Social cognition.
Yeah, so essentially you're right. People know it as a movement disorder. And that's because people say what they see. But actually, sometimes at least 15 years prior to the diagnosis, a person will develop cognitive problems with organising themselves, so executive dysfunction, but they'll also potentially develop social cognitive problems, which is rather like, if you think about it, an acquired autism. So there's that inability to be able to see somebody else's point of view. Counterfactual reasoning, which is that ability to be able to understand where somebody else is coming from. And so you see, way before movement, if a person develops any movement, problems with work, which is the ultimate social environment, and relationships. So over the years, I've seen fractured relationships at work, but also in the home environment. And you're right, because I don't think many OTs really appreciate that. They'll often see somebody perhaps in the later stages of the illness, whereas actually...
Well, you said if they do develop... would some people with Huntington's not develop the physical symptoms, but they would have the cognitive, the social...
Psychiatric and cognitive symptoms.
And would they be diagnosed as people with Huntington's?
Because Huntington's disease is a genetic disorder, so each child born to a person with HD has a 50% chance of inheriting the disorder. It may very well be that they have decided to have the gold standard test, which is a genetic test, which will show that they have the expanded repeat, which will then lead to the mutation of the gene. So it may very well be that they are what's called gene positive, but actually their presentation, it sometimes doesn't actually ever develop any movement, or if it does, it's minuscule.
But they could have the other. They
Yeah.
Could have, all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. So it is.
So a lot of people end up in psychiatric services because their behaviours have changed. Yeah, or they develop behaviours that challenge. Yeah.
So then that takes us on to the work, your voluntary work. And again, I've interviewed quite a few people for the podcast, and it's amazing how many OTs, in fact, every OT that I've interviewed so far has also got a voluntary side to them. It's amazing, every single one of them so far. So you do voluntary work in Venezuela. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
The other side of the world. How did that happen?
Well, I suppose I entered the world of OT, and I think probably because I had a previous sort of life before that, I used quite a lot of my already existing skills to kind of accelerate, I suppose, a little bit along my career path. And I ended up working in Huntington's disease in Birmingham, and I ended up also heading up the Huntington's disease module at the University of Birmingham. So I started to be invited to conferences and things.
That still runs, that module?
Yes.
Just so that we know.
Yeah, it still runs.
You teach that module?
I teach that module. So it's not just occupational therapy, it is Huntington's disease on the Masters in Neuropsychiatry.
So you have this very dyslexic person who's now a lecturer at university.
I know, it's bonkers, isn't it? It's bonkers. I tell you what, when I'm actually marking people's assignments, it takes me forever.
But still, you'll get there.
I get there eventually.
Very good.
And I started to get invited to speak at conferences and things. And I saw this guy called Nacho speak for an organisation called Factor H. And Factor H are a humanitarian organisation that provide humanitarian support for people with Huntington's disease in Latin America. And I thought, wow, okay, I wonder if I can help in some way. I'd done some webinars and things for the Huntington's Disease Association. And so I rang him up and I said, hey, can I help? And he was just like, well, what can you offer us? And I was like, I don't know. He was like, do you speak Spanish? And I was like, schoolgirl, Duolingo, Google Translate. Didn't hear from him for months. And eventually he came back to me and he said, well, I've been speaking to people and they've said, well, if she wants to come, she can come. Will you come and give a talk on occupational therapy at the second Latin American Huntington's Disease Conference in Colombia?
Okay.
And there were all these like rock star scientists on the schedule. And then there was me and I was like, okay. So I went and I spoke. And it was most bizarre because it was like the stage was all glittery and there were lights and it was kind of like, you know, when you see these kind of Spanish or Latin American kind of game shows, it was a little bit like that. But it was great and everyone was so warm and so welcoming. And I met people from Peru and Colombia and Venezuela, and one of the team under Factor H, there are a number of foundations in each country that run the humanitarian work. And I met the head of the Habitat Luz, so House of Light, and they're the foundation that run the Venezuelan program. And they said, come and work with us. We kind of want you on our team.
Okay.
And that's where it came from. And I got given a sort of almost project of my own, which was called the Caregivers program. Because in Venezuela, there are townships where the Huntington's disease gene was discovered. And these are the biggest populations of people with Huntington's disease in the world. And most caregivers are gene positive themselves, at risk, because they don't have genetic testing there.
No.
So
even though it was developed there,
even though it was discovered there,
they still don't do testing.
And that's because of the geopolitical situation, which is another thing in and of itself, which I've had to learn a lot about. And they said, would you like to run this caregivers program? And I was just like, okay. And then I said, is there any money? And they said no. And I was like, okay. So I said, okay, I need to go out and see what it's like. And I went out, a couple of years ago for the first time. And I thought to myself, there's no piped water. So there's no sewerage. There's black water and white water. People live in tin huts in 38-degree heat with 80% humidity. There's no structure, health and social care structure. Habitat Luz provide a social worker, and she kind of does a lot of the things herself in this town, where out of about 5,000 people, there are probably at least 750 families that have, we think, Huntington's disease.
Huge.
And so I just kind of went with a list, which was a very Western list. And I sat outside this
Sharing,
house.
toileting.
And I ripped it up. And started again. And it was about relationships, building relationships, building trust. Because these people feel abandoned. They feel abandoned by, they did feel abandoned by the Huntington's disease community after the gene was discovered.
Yeah.
Even though that may or may not be the case, they felt abandoned. And they also feel abandoned by their own government.
Yeah.
No
services.
Hardly any services at all. Not like we would know services.
No.
And so we decided to kind of think, what we need is some kind of roving caregiving team, because a lot of the people were, people with Huntington's disease were, their caregivers were burnt out, or their caregivers had left the country because of the geopolitical situation. So the caregivers program was to focus initially on those very vulnerable people because they couldn't care for themselves, but also then to think about looking after the caregivers.
How did you get the caregivers? Like, how did you identify people who would become caregivers?
Purely by walking through the town and meeting characters and I suppose just very gently having conversations with people who knew people who knew people, and people would come forward. And again, they were very cynical, but you just kind of gently sort of chip away. And importantly, I said...
Were you there on your own?
I went. You have to have... The Foreign and Commonwealth Office don't like people to go to Venezuela. So you have to have this kind of special insurance, rather like, I don't know, a BBC camera person who goes out to Syria or something.
Yeah.
You get anti-kidnap insurance, all kinds of stuff. And when I'm there, I have pretty much a bodyguard with me most of the time. Who's a local man called Samuel, who's lovely. And I also have a colleague called Jindal, who speaks really great English. He also happens to be a filmmaker. And part of this process was, I can't tell this story. If I'm going to raise awareness of this, I need them to tell their own story. So I said to Jindal, part of this program is going to involve making a movie. Are you up for that? And he was. And so I was like, okay, now I need to raise money for the movie and for the program. But, I kind of did it bit by bit by bit. And last year, when we were scouting for, I suppose, locations, as they call it, in film-making world, we went to this house and we could hear this groaning. And we went in and there was a man on the floor, completely naked, and in his own mess. And he had been abandoned.
On his own?
On his own. And we were so stunned. We realised that we had to do something immediately. We had these ideas, but we knew that then at that point we needed to do something straight away. And literally the town and the relationships that we'd formed came back to the sort of office that we have. And when I say office, it's not like an office as we know it. And we were like, what are we going to do? And we started the Roving Caregivers program, which was one of the girls that we'd met. And we started to pay her straight away to go in to care for this guy, put him in diapers, got a mattress. And okay, he died 8 weeks later, but he didn't die alone.
No.
And it was dignified.
Mm-hmm.
And we have just kind of replicated that slowly but surely. So now we have 3 roving caregivers. They go out, they look after 14 people over 2 days. It's very physical work.
You have no equipment.
No, it's something that we are thinking about. We're building a list. But because, again, of the geopolitical situation, we can't necessarily get stuff like we would get stuff over here.
No.
You know, wouldn't it be great if I could get a seating matters chair to be shipped over the ocean and all of that? But again, because of the government's policies, we would have to do business in a different way.
Right.
So we're thinking about, okay, where can we get that equipment? Probably from Russia or from China, because that's who Venezuela do business with. And certainly when I go in July, I'll be taking a big suitcase full of stuff that I can't get out there, or that because of the inflation, it's going to cost us a heck of a lot more. So,
and will you be allowed to take that? Will anybody check your? Are you thinking about? What are you thinking
just
about?
Small stuff like wound dressings or manual handling belts. I've been experimenting with pressure care, which is no, actually, because again they're very, very expensive, and you can only get stuff that's made in Venezuela. So actually, surgical gloves filled with water actually make an excellent pressure care.
Isn't it amazing?
Cushion. So it's incredible the things that you learn about that you think, oh, I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
But actually, when you've got nothing, you have to start with something.
How do you tie the glove?
Oh, you feel them only halfway up to the fingers, like about there.
Right.
And then you tie a knot. So you like kind of stretching the top
Stretch
like you
it
would a
up.
balloon.
Yeah.
Fill them up to that point, and then you tie them. And then I've had them on my desk for about a week, and then I've been putting them under my bum and all kinds of stuff to just kind of make sure that they don't burst.
Yeah.
But actually then what you can do is you can tie them together in shapes.
To make like a cushion.
Mm. I read it in, it was in a journal.
You can tie the fingers together?
Yeah. And you can form a sort of a basic pressure cushion.
Right.
Yeah, so... And it's not perfect by any stretch, but actually it does.
Could you imagine anybody, like, it just shows you what you can do and the level that we expect in the Western world.
Yeah.
Like, you know, could you imagine that ever being presented to a patient here, but yet you're finding benefit from it?
Yeah. I mean, of course, most people in Barranquitas don't have a mattress. They sleep in hammocks.
Yeah.
So actually, one of the most current difficult ones was a gentleman sleeping in a hammock. So he'd become immobile in a hammock, and of course a hammock, your bottom is down at the bottom of the hammock, and your legs kind of are forced upwards towards your chest.
So the pressure's all going.
So he is malnourished, and he's got pressure sores at the bottom here. But also he's developed a bit of a sort of contracture, high tone. And so we've actually managed to get his son to get him out of the hammock, and he can sit supported in it's a very old plastic chair, and he can actually get and clean the wounds. And we've been using honey. And because we don't have any wound dressings, we've actually been using half sanitary towels, which are very good wound covers. And also some, so the honey has helped with the infection. And now we're putting some very strong sort of aqueous cream. And actually they're really doing well. They're healing quite well.
Is that local honey? Can you get the honey there?
Yeah, we can get the honey there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So... and actually, a lot of this stuff is written down when you look at it's not stuff that you would ordinarily in the UK be going, oh, yeah, that's what I'm going to as an OT. But actually, it's the means to an end. My speech and language colleagues are like, what about, pureed food? People with HD get dysphagia. And I'm like, okay, we're doing the best we can, because actually food insecurity is rife.
Yeah.
So actually sometimes we can't get the right texture of food.
No.
What we have to do is get food into people. So they're all of those things, really. So
It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I have to congratulate you on that. It's just like a wild, I don't know, very ambitious project.
I think, again, it comes back to this. I think there's still this chip that's like, I heard that I wasn't going to amount to much, and it comes from there. But it also comes from, I don't know, I have my parents to thank. They brought me up with a great
Your
sense
mum
of-
was a nurse?
Yeah, my mum was a nurse. My mum was a nurse. And now I'm kind of helping my dad care for my mum,
That's right.
because my mum can't eat and drink by herself anymore, because she has a tremor and dystonia, but she has a great sense of service and community that she's instilled in me. And I think that's where it comes from. It's how I'm built, I think.
You didn't mention the fact that you won an award. Or, a big like a fairly, in Venezuela terms, a big amount of money.
Last year, when I was looking for money, I typed into Google, how do you raise a grant? And the link came up, and it was for the Amgen Prize for Rare Diseases. And it was
Amgen are a pharmaceutical company.
they're a pharmaceutical company, and they work with MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
Yeah.
And every year there are a number of awards that are sort of very much about improving people's circumstances. And there was this particular one, and it said innovative solutions. And I was like, okay, is mine innovative enough? Because I was thinking tech and stuff.
Oh,
And I thought, oh, no, this is innovative because actually this has never been tried in Barranquitas in Venezuela. And so I was like, if I could have anything, what would it be? So I sat and I wrote my solution based on that, which was roving caregivers, paying them a decent wage, giving them opportunity. So, in other words, yes, we're employing them as caregivers, but actually, if one of them wants to set up a little business selling cold drinks, can we buy them a fridge? It's very small stuff, but massive. Could I have a little community hub where there were toilets and a kitchen and somebody could, a washing machine?
Yeah.
And so I put that down, and amazingly, last September we got into the finals, and then we went and won.
Did you get help to complete the application? Who did it with you?
Oh, because it's almost because it's like kind of my day job. Actually, the very practical things, I'm not so bad about writing, but they just take a very long time. So I don't know, it took me about 10 days in total to eventually put the whole thing together. And
Again, a great achievement in itself, getting it all written up and getting it put in, and that in itself. Because I apply for grants and I don't like doing it.
I know.
But the writing itself.
The writing itself is exhausting. If I could say to anyone about, I think there's a tendency now, isn't there, for people to go, oh, there's all of these, neurodivergent people. I'd say, actually, you know what, it is a thing, and it's really exhausting. But it doesn't mean that you can't do anything. You just got to find your way through.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm like you say, I'm a lecturer, but I'm also studying myself.
Yeah.
And I've had to be really honest with my supervisors, who are like, why can't you, turn stuff in on time? And it's literally, I'm trying really hard.
Because you're doing a PhD.
Yeah.
You're amazing, really.
I'm probably a bit daft, to be honest.
You just never give up. You just keep going. What's the next thing? What's the next thing?
Yeah, yeah, I do. But these are really, really important things. I sort of almost think I'm making up for lost time a little bit too. I think I discovered my brain later on in life.
You're certainly doing that. Well, like, we have this phrase that we use in St. Matters, giving caregivers the means to care. And like, that's what you're doing in Venezuela. Like, you are employing people. You're giving them a purpose, and in return, they are helping other people. Like, it's just amazing. I think it's absolutely wonderful.
It gives me great joy. It gives me great joy. I do switch off, but these kinds of things give me great joy and give me purpose, I suppose, too. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And we are definitely going to keep in touch with this because I want to see how we could help and how in the future, how you keep going with your project. It's absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for coming on and talking to us.
It's been a
Thanks,
pleasure.
Alex. Thank you.
Okay.